Since storming onto the jazz scene with his debut record Omega, which was named the #1 jazz album of 2020 by the New York Times, Immanuel Wilkins' star has steadily been on the rise. His sophomore album on Blue Note, The Seventh Hand, is a 7-movement suite of original compositions designed to be performed as a continuous listening experience. It is entirely improvised and is based on the biblical number 6, representing the extent of human possibility. It explores the possibility of there being a 7th element that invokes the power of divine intervention through the music. Welcome to Artimacy, Immanuel. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me, for real.
I'm so excited to watch your continual glow up, man. It's like you're always seems like topping yourself, and I'm starting to see you saturate just everywhere, even more so now
Well,
with the second album, The Seventh
thank you.
Hand, which just came out. And
That's
I'm
right.
just really excited for you, man.
Thank
Congratulations.
thank you. It's yeah, it's exciting. I like I'm in love with the process. So it's like I'm having a good time.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I want to kind of get into with you is the process of getting here. Of course, your debut album, which came out in 2020 now, gosh, almost 2 years ago, on Blue Note, Omega, rated #1 by New York Times. Like, are you at all nervous because you set the bar so high for yourself already
Uh,
that,
um
what are your
that's a
thoughts
good
around this
question.
release?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm nervous. I mean, maybe partially because I selfishly have heard it already. Yet, we've been sitting on it for maybe like 6 months now. So I feel like it's better than the first one. So it's helpful that way. But yeah, I don't know. I feel good. I'm happy to be able to just have music to put out and to make work. And yeah, I think more so I always talk about just the fact I definitely feel pressure um just being on Blue Note, and thinking about kind of the archive of like just amazing musicians on the label.
Imagine. Wow.
It's that's really the main thing that kind of drives me, I guess, or is daunting about the whole process is knowing that like also like putting a record out on this label also means an induction into a certain canon of music that spans like 50, 60 years, 70 years of like just the most seminal recordings that we have in the music.
Absolutely. You're certainly amongst the greats, but of course it's well earned and well deserved.
Thanks.
You
Thanks.
wouldn't seriously, man, you wouldn't be there if, you weren't top tier talent. So I want to talk about, speaking of being on a major label such as Blue Note, you went from, humble beginnings, Jazz House Kids to
Right. Yep.
now on Blue Note, man. I know that for you, that must be mind blowing, but I want to talk about how things are for you artistically now that you are with this major label putting out your sophomore project with Blue Note. Some folks say that, you know, um, being with a label sometimes can be stifling,
Hmm.
to one's artistry. What has your experience, and I just want to get real right now, what
Yeah.
has your experience been, as a signed artist?
Yeah. I think one of the main reasons that I even because I talked to a lot of people about maybe self-releasing as well when I was putting out the first one, and I think the main point for me was having support, like support for the projects and making sure that my work reaches a lot of people, and I have the I had the support to do whatever I need to do. You know what I'm saying? And just I was thinking about you know also also it had a lot to do with maybe the group of people that are on Blue Note now, especially the group of young people. I was just talking to somebody about kind of the resurgence of you know, maybe young artists on the label. You know, me, Joel Ross is on it, James Francis. You know, like it, you know,
A
those
whole
are the
new
homies.
wave.
Yeah, you know, it feels like some sort of rift, you know, some sort of wave of positivity coming from my age group, and so yeah, you know, I'm happy to join them. You know, a lot of it was that too. It's like, yeah, you know, I want to contribute to a movement, you know, and kind of recognizing that in the moment, I think it's important. And I think about, you know, the like I wonder if Disney knew that, like, you know, what they were doing in the, you know, in the 40s and 50s, like that was going to be, you know, like such a, you know, you know, like pivotal moment in the music. Or like, did Bird know, or did Bud Powell know, did
Right.
Monk know, you know? And I think the answer is, you know, partially, yeah, you know, and I think partially they recognize that it's like, oh yeah, like these are other folks that are, you know, doing something that I similar to me, you know, and let's hang out, let's develop, let's get together and you know, build something together, you know. And so I think that, you know, that was a big part of it too for me, was like, you know, I wanted to be with people who also you know, we're creating music on a high level, and that I admired. And obviously, once again, the pressure of the label pushes me to, you know, make sure I'm putting out work that, you know, I really stand by and I think is good. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Yeah, that support you mentioned is evident, man. I've seen you, like I said, you've been saturating the market. You did a tiny desk.
thanks.
I was like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you know, also like you know, I'm also kind of a fan of fake it till you make it, you know, and you know, a
Speak
lot,
on it.
you know,
Yes.
and so a lot of that is like, you know, I like, regardless of funds, regardless of, you know, label, no label, whatever it is, like I'm trying to put out the best, you know, product possible, you know, and
Yeah.
Blue Note makes it easier to do that, you know what I mean? And it's easier to, like, you know, do things, you know, if I want to do a video, you know, I'm able to work on, you know, I'm able to work on certain things that I probably wouldn't be able to do without a label, you know.
Right.
And also just handle some of that work, because it's a lot of work to self-release, and I admire everyone who has done it. Man, I was actually, well, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Candace, about her
Yeah.
first project, and she was like, yeah, like it was, and I didn't realize that she had self-released it, because it, you know, it got so much love and so much press around it. And I was like, man, you did that yourself? She's like, yeah, I did that all myself, you know. And I was just really I think I was just really inspired by that, you know. But it was also one of those things, we were also in a mutual agreement that, like, she could never do that again. She was like, no, I'm not doing that again. Like, like, there's no way. It's too much work, you know. And I think the label kind of, you know, mitigates some of those you know, issues that you run into with, you know, publicists, distribution. You know what I mean? It's just like it's all central to one place. And it's really worked out. They've been really supportive. I'm super thankful for them. You know, Blue Notes, they're cool. They're like, literally whatever I want to do, they find a way to make it happen.
So is it safe to say that you would recommend, if someone was presented with the opportunity to sign to a major label?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, but you know, but it also depends on, what, you know, what they want, you know, for the you know, everybody wants different things. I think there are a lot of pros, you know, but there's also cons to, you know, a large company, you know, corporation. It's you know, there's always pros and cons. So I
To
think it just depends
everything.
on, yeah, to everything. You know, I think it depends on what people want. It works for, you know, it works out for me. You know, I'm happy. Um and yeah, you know, but there's always, you know, I think it's an individual, you know, basis, case by case for me.
Yeah. And your work seems to have taken on like a new set of legs. I watched the video for Emanation, Don't Break, and I was just completely just awestruck by it. The cinematography behind it alone, I'm like, this is really like a visual tone poem.
Thanks.
I
Thanks.
want to talk to you about the vision, the treatment. Like, how did you come up with that? What was the process like for
Yeah,
producing
me and the filmmaker Colleen Smith, she's an amazing filmmaker, and I've been a fan of hers for a long time. We we kind of just started talking maybe actually beginning of the pandemic, like when I first had put out Omega, we had just kind of started conversations around her work and my work, and yeah, and then basically I approached her about working on maybe a 2-song video for this project, and basically what we kind of settled on. So for Emanation, the materials kind of based around like the idea of gathering, like the power in gathering, and if maybe the notion of like whether gathering can produce another element or an emanation out from a source, and there's actually, I shared with her this really interesting thing in music where if you take, like, let's say you take two frequencies like at like 440 hertz and 200 hertz, right? There's 240 hertz left over if you minus that.
Right.
Not to get into math, right? 440 minus 200, there's like 240 left over. So your ear actually makes up a third note. So if you hear two notes played at a pure tone at these like specific hertz, it generates a third sound. And it's called difference tones. And flute players do it a lot. But I say that to say that like this kind of concept of maybe intentional gathering, it exists in nature as well as, obviously the spiritual realm. So basically we kind of settled on these kind of visuals of like fishing, kind of the fishing rod emanating out from a person, or kite flying with same deal. There's a father and daughter.
That reminded me of my childhood because me and my dad used to fly kites too. So
oh, really?
That's nostalgic.
I never flew kites. I thought they were cool though. I don't think I've ever flown a kite. Maybe once, and it like didn't really work. It like wasn't windy out.
You got to do it.
Yeah. And then also, like thinking like with fishing, like there's also, I feel like there was within the record, there's like a inherent just power in water. I think water is a special element. Air is also another special element. So I think dealing with those things too was something we were thinking about. And then for Don't Break, that one's a interesting one pertaining to the video. There's double dutch going on, and basically, I mean, the song itself is really about dance. It's about dance, and it's about basically like the relationship between African drums or drums in general and dance within the, Africans, or African diasporic spiritual practices, and kind of how like the drums and the dance basically kind of work as some sort of channel for becoming a vessel, right? So like in obviously like in the Black church, that's like shouting, so like the drums play the beat, and then the dancers dance and become possessed, or in like West African spiritual practice, basically the drums play in a circle and they call down the deity, then the dancer becomes possessed by the deity, right? So it's kind of the same concept with throughout all whether that's Caribbean culture, the same thing happens with bomba, with rumba. It's all kind of connected within the diaspora that way. And so basically then it became kind of a coded mission to then kind of examine all of Black footwork, so it's like, well, now are there similarities between African dance, line dance, like the electric slide, shouting in church, double dutch, as like this kind of improvisatory Black footwork that maybe like a channel for spiritual.
It's all intertwined, and the thing that is so readily apparent with this album is the spirituality behind it. As you mentioned, it has such a spiritual element. Talk to me a little bit about even the title, The Seventh Hand, where that came from.
Yeah, the title kind of came from thinking of when when I would like when I improvise, there's a certain place that I feel like I can access at my highest level, with like, which is like one of kind of the deep subconscious, like super, like 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 super zen, not like kind of nothingness in the brain. You're not thinking front of mind, and it's all kind of just flowing naturally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about this as like kind of the peak of like being a vessel, right? I felt like something else was doing the work for me. I wasn't doing the work, right?
Wow.
And I would get there somewhat. And so basically for me, um, this project was about kind of creating some sort of maybe even like a performance art practice of like subjecting the body to a certain amount of rigor to kind of maybe open up the musician unto leading towards the seventh movement. And I started
Like
to
a
call this
portal.
thing that yes, and I tried to call this thing the seventh hand. I started to call it kind of reaching the seventh hand, meaning like um six has always been kind of the symbol of like the extent of like human possibility, and then seven being kind of the symbol of like divine intervention. So I was like, well, man, some people call it the big house. Some, like, if you talk to some old heads who talk about like playing free, they'll be like, oh yeah, we playing in the big house. So that's kind of my version of that. It's like
Yeah,
we playing the
beyond the
seven, we got
six
to the seventh hand. Yep,
or
yep,
however many senses there are.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Five, I guess, but you know,
Yeah.
even above that. Wow, that's incredible. So I'm curious to know, when you got into the studio to do this thing, I know you came with your compositions, but how did the spirit move in the recording process?
Yeah, wow, yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I mean, we recorded it in order, which is, I think, rare for studio dates. Usually, you kind of choose the songs you record to deal with the pacing of the studio, because recording in the studio is just like such a like kind of weird experience. And it there's so much pressure in the studio. You know what I mean? It's like you basically pay for time to just be, you're paying thousands of dollars to be in this room for a certain amount of hours, and you have to produce during these hours, so it's a weird situation. And
Yeah.
usually the pacing of the studio basically determines what songs you do in what order. We recorded it straight through. We had been kind of rehearsing it pretty vigorously for a couple days. And it was interesting. By the last movement, we ended up playing for 30 minutes. And when we stopped playing, I thought that I was probably going to cut it up and just use a smaller piece of it. It's an album. So I'm thinking I'll use a smaller piece. I listened back. We used pretty much 26 minutes of the 30 that we played. And so yeah, it actually, it's funny that last movement, when we play it live, it's sometimes we don't know how to stop, you know. um and I think it's partially because, like, you get into this vulnerable space that you want to stay in for a long time. It's kind of it feels like a lake that you're wading in forever,
Right.
and it continues to feed you. There's always more to go, there's always miles to go. So I feel like in the studios it was interesting. I mean, I didn't know we were going to record a 26-minute song. I didn't know that was going to happen. But yeah, the studio was interesting. We haven't played this live too much. We played it maybe 3 or 4 times live, like way back in like maybe 2018, 2019. So
Oh, wow.
um yeah, yeah, these will be the first gigs where we're like actually playing it.
Yeah. Man, I was so happy to see, DC's own Farafina Khan,
That's
Quaking
right.
Memory. I'm like, oh, you got the cast on here. How did you bring together, the musicians that you have on the seventh hand?
Yeah, so aside from, so my quartet, we've been playing together for maybe 5 years now, I think. We started playing like maybe 2016, 2017, around there. And then yeah, basically, so Farafina Khan, that man, a couple of the people in Farafina Khan actually grew up with. So I played the Clef Club, and the Clef Club would always play double bills adjacent with this drum and dance group in Camden called Universal, and one of the cats in that, Jamal Dickerson, he's on the record playing with Farafina Khan, and that's kind of how me and Kwaku actually really started bonding, was over our mutual friends in the African drum world. There's a cat, Kyrie Shaheed, who's a great drummer. He also is a djembe fola, and and Kwaku knew him, and yeah, it was a bunch of music. All the Dickersons, the whole Dickerson family plays djembe, and so yeah, we started bonding over that, and then with this piece, we were thinking about the drums, and it was like, yo, man, we should get Farafina Khan on this, and Kwaku in the crib like arranged the drum part. It's pandemic times. He got some drum mics, arranged a drum part, and brought it in to Farafina Khan, and they rehearsed it and came through the studio, and we played.
Wow. This music, man, it really is coming from a deep spiritual place. I can feel that whenever, I'm sure anybody hears it, it makes you want to like tap into something else, something that's not necessarily physical. So I'm wondering, as an artist, what would you say, I guess, is your credo? What is it that you're trying to give out? You know what I mean? Like, what is it that you're trying to give as an artist?
Yeah, I mean, for one, I think maybe at the most fundamental level, I'm trying to make music that I would like to hear on my phone. That's at the most fundamental level. Like I'm trying to create stuff that I want to hear, that I want to listen to. And for me, that's the baseline level of just like fulfilling a need. I feel like there's a space for this music, and that's kind of what I want to do. And beyond that, I think it's kind of a vulnerable practice of sharing. A lot of it has to do with just me, kind of thinking about this music as something that feeds me, that heals me, that I like to listen to, and hopefully and humbly, I hope it does the same for everyone else. I don't necessarily write for the people. I write for myself, but I think that's actually the beauty in it, is this whole this whole thing that we do as artists is maybe a practice of empathy that for the audience, as a way of looking in on some. I think the beauty is that as an audience member, we get to look in on what John Coltrane was doing with the quartet. They've escaped the gaze. You know what I'm saying? They're not they're not thinking about the audience in these moments where they're hitting deep levels of the music. I don't think they were thinking about the audience. I think they were in it for themselves. That's a personal experience at that point. And I think the beauty is that we get to listen in on it, and so I think that part of my mission is to maybe challenge people to practice that, that kind of idea of empathy, yeah, I don't know.
Definitely. You're healing folks through this music.
I hope so.
You are. You certainly are. Emmanuel, I thank you. I thank you so much for being here. Good luck on tour. You got a lot of dates
thank you, yeah.
to cover, which is great.
Yeah.
It's great to be busy. Take care of yourself, though, too.
Thank you. And thanks for doing this. This is an important platform, and it's a great thing that you're doing. So listen, I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thank you. Yeah. Take care. Thank you for joining me on Artimacy, Emmanuel.
Of course.
I appreciate it.
Seriously. No sweat. This was because they hit me up. I think we were originally supposed to be doing the Pulse or something.
Yes.
And then it switched, and I'm like, look, if it's Keanu, like I'm down for whatever it is, like whatever she want to do is whatever. I'm down. I'm with,
Thank you.
With
high
whatever.
Five.
Of course, yeah, exactly. Zoom high five. No, yeah, definitely.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime.